Hi, I am Saket Bansal and I am sharing details related to contract type. Contract type is one of the critical topic of your PMP certification because it relates with procurement, in a little bit with the risk, also with overall change control. So let's understand these three types of contract because you may get many questions where you need to make a decision what kind of contract type will be suitable for a given situation. Before we discuss contract type, let's discuss what is contract and why do we need it. You want to work with someone which is not your team member, not part of your organization. How do you trust that person for producing a desired deliverable for your project objective? How do you have an agreement related to how the money exchange, how the scope agreement will get reached? This is the purpose of contract. Contract is a legal binding, an agreement between two or more parties that outline the terms and conditions under which goods, services, and results will be provided. And it also specifies the rights and obligations of each party. Now, why it's a legal binding? Because if someone is not complying to that contractual conditions, we can go to the authorities and point out that this person is not meeting the contractual obligation. You please help us to get it done. And that's why it helps us in building trust. The contracts help us in working with the strangers in a given legal framework. So we need contracts when we are working with other parties. When we talk about contract in project management, many a time this also get confused. Yes, this topic comes under procurement, but there could be two types of contract which might be there in your project management. One type of contract, I'm saying client contract. Contract is contract though, but this contract is between your client and you, your company. And this contract may become a trigger for your project charter, which also definitely will influencing your project requirement, and later on you come up with the scope and detailed work breakdown structure. Your project sometimes is strategy driven, business case driven, sometimes they are client contract driven. So there is a contract which defines your deliverables, your terms and condition with the client. Now you have a scope, and while you are working on your work breakdown structure, you realize that there is a piece of work which you want to get it done from outside because you believe it is cheaper to get it outside, it might be faster to get it from outside. You make your make or buy decision, and your make or buy analysis concludes it's better to buy it. So that's another term which we need to keep in mind. And then you initiate that, okay, you find out the appropriate vendor and you follow the complete flow as per your procurement plan or a procurement strategy. And at the end of it, you have a selected vendor as a particular one, and you want to have a legal binding with this guy that, okay, this is what we will give it to you, this is what you need to give to us, and there is a contract there. In general, whenever we are talking about contract in PMP exam, we mainly focus on procurement related view. But as a project manager, I need to keep in mind that both the contract will have more or less similar characteristics, but my role may little bit vary depending upon where I see myself. But these two type of contracts are prevailing in my real project management. Now, client contract, we can say it's a formal agreement between client and the organization which is initiating or doing this particular project, and it will be primarily outlining my scope, deliverable, expectations, and final product which I have to deliver. Whereas a vendor contract is a legal binding between my organization and the external vendor, which will specify the vendors and my agreement related to scope of work which we have given to them, overall timelines, costing, as per our terms and condition, which is suitable to get the work done. So we keep both the contract in mind. Now, I as a project manager, so how do I act? So I could be a buyer or I could be a seller because contract is basically between buyer and seller. Yeah, usually there could be some other parties as well, but mainly we can say buyer and seller. Someone is buying and someone is selling. So buyer and seller, when I'm doing client contract, then I am a seller. Yeah, as a project manager or my company is a seller, client is a buyer. But when I'm doing a vendor contract, I am the buyer and my vendor is the seller. So in the rest of my project management, when I talk about identification and working with requirements, scopes, when I talk about working with the timelines and talking to the stakeholders, I usually behave as a service provider, deliverable, yeah, deliverable provider. I behave like a seller. But when it comes to procurement topic, and related topic to a procurement, there could be a risk related to procurement as well. There could be change control related to procurement as well. But when the procurement is the main focus area, I act as a buyer. So now I have given some work to someone. someone is doing work for me. They are producing deliverable and supplies to me. I probably need to approve or reject their work. My company through me will end up paying them. So I behave as a buyer. So in this particular session, we better focus on thinking as a project manager as a buyer, because we are focusing more on a procurement related contract. But though the contract type is relevant for client contract as well as vendor contract, but when we give an example, we will be more focusing on as a buyer. So as a project manager doing procurement. So contract types. So first is, why do we need a contract type? Yeah, or what is the purpose the contract type is solving? So contract type help us in defining how do we come up with a cost, how do we balance risk, how do we allocate responsibilities between buyer and seller. Now exact details of roles and responsibility on buyer and seller will be specific to a given contract. Yeah. So contract type is, you can say, high level categorization. So these kind of contract we make, types of contract we make. A specific contract may be having some mixing. It is not necessary that your real contract will be only one type of it. You may have a flavor of other type of terms and condition as well, depending upon the situation. So overall, we can say it helps us in determining how payment will be made, how risk will be managed or shared, how changes in the scope will be done, because the types of these contracts are categorized based on these characteristics. So now, in general, in our project management content, we talk about three types of contract: fixed priced, cost reimbursable, and time and material. Let's explore them one by one. Now, key parameter of contract type selection, because major focus of your PMP exam is, as a project manager, you should be able to select appropriate contract type. So depending upon how clear the work is, how complex the work is, how much predictable the estimations and solutions are, what kind of engagement as a buyer I want to have, what kind of control I want to have as a buyer, how much flexibility I want to change things, how much cost control I want to have it as a buyer. All these things will drive what kind of contract type will be suitable for a given situation. In our PMP terminology, I can say this guidance is given to me from my procurement department or from my organization strategic group. And this is something I agree the criterias and the rules we use to identify appropriate type of contract, and we agree in a procurement management plan. So if I have to go in a particular contract and I'm thinking about what kind of contract type I should use, depending upon work characteristics and depending upon what is recommended in a procurement management plan, I will go with the appropriate contract type. A procurement management plan is driven by organization strategy, but I can tailor it. If I am seeing a specific requirement, I can definitely bring my change there. But in general, I follow what is there in the procurement management plan until unless I tailor it. Yeah, but I always follow procurement management plan. Now, fixed price. So this is something, is a basic thing. Whenever we think of buying something, this is something which comes by default in our mind. So it's something, a legal binding, where the seller is saying, I will deliver this to you. So agrees to deliver a deliverable or a service based on a predetermined fixed cost. I give this and I get this money. The price is set regardless of how much as a seller we end up spending for the project. So the seller is managing their risk. Yeah. For my side as a buyer, my cost is predictable and it's a stable contract type for me as a buyer. So I, by default, in general thinking as a project manager, may always want to go for a fixed price if possible. Yeah, if my project characteristics are suitable for fixed price, if the question is indicating that, by default I will go for fixed price. I don't have unnecessary reasons of changing it, provided my project characteristics are showing it. So what is the characteristics of fixed price project, or when it is becomes more suitable? So it is obvious, when you want to pay a fixed price, the seller also wants to have a fixed and clear requirement. And if you don't have it, then we only know we have to pay this much, but seller may not do the expectation which we have from the seller. Seller will say, I have done my work, now you pay the money. And there will be a lot of conflict. So if I don't have a clarity about a requirement and a deliverable, and this clarity about requirement and deliverable should be agreed by both of us, buyer and seller. I'm a buyer, seller should also be very clear. And in general, we should have a very clear identifiable criteria to find out, are we really getting what we were expecting to get. So it is easy to verify, it is easy to say do a acceptance testing, it is easy to prove that this is done or this is not done. That kind of clear requirement and clear deliverables are needed in order to do a healthy execution of fixed price contract. Else we will have unhealthy and lot of conflict related fixed price contract. Now, once we have this surety about this is what we do and this is what we want, we should focus on minimal change going forward, because these kind of contracts are not designed to support changes. And if you have a change, the seller will ask for money, and sometimes they will ask for more money than you even think of. So you better be very clear as a buyer project manager that okay, things should be very clearly defined, then only I will go for a fixed price. The advantage you have is from your side the cost is predictable, because you know that this is the money I am going to spend. Whatever buyer does, it's their problem. So it has a more risk to a seller, and the buyer has a fixed price. And once I do this contract, yeah, I don't have to do day to day monitoring of what seller is doing, because I have already told the seller this is what I want, and I have a clear characteristics of what I want. When the seller will bring the deliverable, I will check the deliverable against those characteristics, and if it is getting met, we will pay. If it is not getting met, we will not pay. Yeah. So since we have that much clarity, then as a buyer project team member, we don't have to be that much involved or in the execution of the seller's work. So usually it requires less involvement. We may need to have a periodic reports and deliverable verification and validation from our side, but that is something is a periodic activity when the deliverables are ready. Day-to-day involvement is not needed when my seller is doing a fixed price contract with me. I am a buyer. Now, when should we use fixed price? I hope this is pretty clear that when should we use it. But overall, we can say low complexity projects where idea of the projects and deliverables are well understood by both the parties. Many a time you will see government and commercial contracts are falling under that. Construction of a house, or sometimes clear software implementation where you say this is the software and you just need to implement it. Those situations may be good for fixed price contract. By default, I always want to use it provided I really have a simple case to handle. Yeah, in a simple case, I will not go for anything else. I will go this particular fixed price contract. Now, variants of a fixed price contract. So usually when we talk about fixed price, we indirectly mean firm fixed price. It's the most common contract type where we say price is this, scope is this, and unless scope is not changing, we will pay this price only. It's a fixed price, firm fixed price. Sometimes you have incentives attached to it. You can say, okay, we will give you a fixed price, but if you as a seller can do something good for us, now that something good we have to define. You will have a specific incentive for doing that good. So say you may deliver early, then we will have this much incentive for you. Or if you can give a practical technical performance, then initially defined in the contract which we have between both of us, then we will give you some incentive fee. So we can have a specific criteria which mentioned in the contract. And once those criteria are met, we as a buyer are expected, we are obliged to give that particular money because it is as per the incentive criteria. Fixed price with economic price adjustment. This becomes little tricky. Yeah, and sometimes it confuses the test taker. So say you want to do a long-term fixed price contract, and overall understanding is there, yeah, in the buyer and seller both. But there are some raw material or things which are used in that particular contract has a fluctuation in price. There is a possibility of upside and downside, and the both of you may not want to take a risk of that fluctuation. You can say let's share the risk, and in that case you may put a clause that if a particular element will go at this particular rate, based on that we need to adjust the price. So for example, you will say if the inflation goes up, it's a multi-year contract, based on the inflation number we will also change the price of our annual payments. That could be a fixed price with a economic price adjustment. The another example could be in your project you have a lot of foreign exchange dealing, and you may want to say that okay, if the foreign exchange or a rate will fluctuate, that amount of fluctuation has to be adjusted in the price we get as a seller. So seller will say this much adjustment I need. So as a buyer and seller we agree to a benchmark, that which benchmark will be used to check this exchange rate, and based on that we will pay. Oil price, gold price, inflation, all these kind of standard terms, standard indexes can be used to find out if we need to make any adjustment in a price or payouts which we have to make from our side as a buyer to the seller. It has to be defined in the contract only, and usually this clause is added for long duration projects to make sure that economic price is getting adjusted. Now, cost reimbursable. So cost reimbursable project is Whereas a buyer, I am agreeing that I will reimburse all your legitimate cost and allowable cost, which you are occurring during the project. Yeah. So you do my work. I will pay your bills. Yeah. I will do all the expenses paid. You bill all expenses to me, and these are the type of expenses you can make. Now, in order to, in addition to these expenses, I will give you some money, yeah, for doing my work. It could be a additional fixed fee. It could be a percentage of my contract expense. It could be some incentive and award. But there is some adjustment based on that. We will say that we will pay you more than what you are spending, but your bills are taken care. And that kind of contract is called a cost reimbursable contract. Now, this kind of a contract is suitable when you have a flexibility in the scope, suitable when the scope is very loosely defined. It is expected to evolve over a period of time. And it has to be a complex project. You can say this is very difficult to spend time to define the work. Why don't we just get started? Yeah, that's a flexibility we want. Now, as a buyer, I want to make sure seller is taking appropriate accounting of all the expenses they are making. And they need to produce the bills in a particular format, in a particular agreement. And there could be some expenses where the buyer want the seller to take an approval first. Yeah, you can say, okay, I have to pay all the bills. Whenever you are making some expenses, you need to give a call to us and take an approval. That kind of a process is there, needed. And as a buyer, I need to do an oversight, yeah, especially on the expenses. I want to make sure that money is really get spending after I approve them, or I'm always aware of how much money is getting spent, because ultimately the cost overrun risk is on me, on buyer. Yeah. So I want to have a say in making the expenses. Now, sometimes you will say, why are you doing it? Why don't you decide how much money you want to spend, and just give a fixed money to the seller? You are doing it because the nature of work is so complex. I can't figure it out how much money it should cost in advance. And that's why I am trusting. The trust factor is very high in case of this kind of contract. I'm trusting my seller to do the best job. And I'm saying, don't compromise on quality. It's a very critical thing for me. We will pay your bill. We will see, and we don't want to talk about what all you will buy, and what kind of people you will put. We will pay your bill, just solve this problem. That kind of characteristics is associated with cost reimbursable contract type. I usually give an example of car service. You want to get your car fixed. You will say, you fix it, you change whatever is needed, and on top of it, I will give you a fee, yeah, which for servicing my car. But when you are giving your car for a service, you don't know how much it is going to cost. It depends upon what all will get changed. But you are trusting the guy. You are not an automobile engineer. You don't know, is this guy is really making the right decision and wrong. But at the same time, you want to be involved. The guy should call you before making the change and before replacing something, so that you know what is happening here. Or you may want to be available to him so that you can do a cost control, but you just focus on cost. That the actual insight about is it a right thing or wrong thing is with the seller only, and you are trusting the seller for doing your job. That's a cost reimbursable contract. So as an example is making it clear, it is suitable for high complexity projects, yeah, where you have high complex requirement, and you as a buyer is not much aware of those complexities. You don't know exactly what it will need, and that's why you are going with a trusted partner. Things like research and development project may go for for a cost reimbursable thing, because you can't fix the things in advance. You can say, guys, let's figure it out and we will do it together. But we are involved. You need to keep consulting with us. Trust is the most important factor here. I won't go with the company who has a poor brand image, or where I don't have a trust with the cost reimbursable contract. So usually, if I'm a seller with a cost reimbursable seller, I will make sure that we maintain our brand image very clear. We create trust in our buyers, and we keep our processes transparent. We use the appropriate internal process to make sure the teams are not doing some mistakes which can lose the trust of our buyers. So focusing on trust becomes the most important factor for a seller who is getting involved in cost reimbursable contracts. Yeah. So say if I want to go for a hospital and I want to get a surgery done, it's a cost reimbursable contract, but it requires a high trust. Whatever is the doctor and surgeons are saying, we are paying, we are going for all those tests, and definitely the money is coming from our pocket. But we definitely take a call and pay the bill one by one, but we are just trusting the guy to make the right recommendations to us, though the money is going out from your pocket all the time. So that's a cost reimbursable. Now, variants of cost reimbursable, you can say cost plus fixed fee, where all cost will be given and on top of it, you have a fixed fee. It could be as a percentage of fee or it could be a fixed fee. Yeah, that is both way it is possible. Sometimes fee is a percentage of initial estimation. Yeah, that's a usual estimation. You may have a clause where the percentage of fee could be based on actual estimation or actual fee also. So it depends. Yeah, there is no very strong rule about it, but you can say cost plus some fee. It could be a fixed fee, it could be a percentage of initial fee without any change, or it could be in a very high trust environment or highly dynamic environment. It could be based on the actual expenses you are making. It's a possible. Cost plus incentive fee. Now, incentive and award, yeah, that's the two words which will confuse us. So, cost is definitely paid. Now, if we have a particular criteria met, then there will be some incentive paid. Yeah. So we can say there is some sharing formula, there is an agreement, and once we reach those criteria, you will have incentive which is top, which is above than the initially planned cost. So say I put a estimate number, yeah, and now I agreed that we will pay you as you spend the money. But if you do less than your estimate, yeah, then the saving we will have some percentage of saving going to you as well. That's a cost plus incentive fee. So we are paying your bill, but we already put a benchmark out of it. And if something saves, we will share with each other. Yeah, that kind of thing. Now, if it is going beyond that particular limit, probably it is not going to come anything as an incentive to you because you are already crossing that particular limit. So it could be incentivizing the seller to optimize the cost, and that's what I want to do. Now, cost plus award fee. So it is something more or less same like incentive, more or less, but it is not very defined criteria. You can say we will pay your cost, and if you give us a good result, we will pay you award. Now the difference between award and incentive, and it can come in any contract type, is award is subjective criteria. You can't challenge it in a court. You can't say this guy was expected to give me award and he has not given it. That is not possible. Yeah, that's a legal term about it. And because it is not challengeable, you may not have to define it very clearly. But incentives are challengeable, and you need to define it clearly. And if you meet the incentive criteria, you have to get the money. Yeah, so that's or pay the money, and that's the difference between these two terms. So cost plus award fee or cost plus incentive fee or cost plus fixed fee or a percentage of fee may be there. So these are the possible variants of your cost reimbursable. Now, time and material. So the way we see it, it's a little bit mixing. It's a mixing of fixed price and little bit of time, the cost reimbursable. So how it is? So it is saying the time, usually the time and material contracts are the contract where time is the major component of cost. Say you are hiring 20 people for 20 months, something like that, and they will do the job for you 20 months. That's a major component. And for this major component, which is your expense part of it, you want to have a fixed rate for this time. You can say, okay, I don't want to pay the real money you are paying to these consultant or these people, but let's have a fixed rate, and we will pay that monthly hourly rate for them based on how much time they will spend. So rate is fixed, but the number of time unit people are going to spend, that could be variable. We will be finding it out based on the process or mechanism we are putting in our contract. And if they consume some material, maybe they consume some licenses and other things, then we will pay those licenses and those material on actual basis. But major focus of time and material is time, which is expected to be rated in advance, and then the actual unit will be considered as we go along. So say I need to make a website, I will say, give me 10 developers for 6 months. And if I take 7 months, I will pay the monthly fee of it, and I need to pay $1,000 per developer. And if they work for me for a month, I will pay the $1,000 for a given thing. If someone resigns in between, someone leaves it, we'll see. We will not pay for that particular person going forward. So if the people keep working for my work, I will keep billing them as per the initial rate. Yeah. As a seller, maybe initially I got a person in $700 and I sold it for 1,000. I got a $300 margin. Later on, one person resigns and I have to get a new guy, and new guy is charging $900. My margin is shrinked. Now I am only earning $100 because my client or the buyer is anyway going to pay $1,000 rate because of time and material type of contract. So that's a little different from cost reimbursable, because cost reimbursable was directly a factor of what money you are spending, where a time and material is fixed rate, but the time unit are flexible. Now, this is good. When you have a flexible scope, you can say, let's get started and we will pay you. So when I want to make a website, I don't have to explain him the scope of a website. I says, you come, I need it for 6 months and we'll do it. Yeah, and we will do it as we go along. Yeah, so it gives a flexibility. Definitely, it put a little risk on cost. Yeah, because cost is a variable, it is not fixed. Because how much time we are spending, the cost will be evolving. But I would say it is less risky compared to cost reimbursable, because cost reimbursable is the cost factor is also very dynamic, the rate factor is also dynamic. Here at least I'm freezing the rate for a given duration and I'm estimating the duration also. But I know if my work will not get done, because we don't have a commitment from the seller about the work. Seller is only providing me the resource to get the things done, the time to get the things done. So I as a buyer have to do a cost control. So as a buyer, I am super involved here. I'm just not involved related to looking for what the seller is buying. I'm more involved in seeing what seller is doing, where the seller is spending the time. Yeah, yeah, majorly. So my focus is appropriately selecting the right people from the seller side, making sure that they are really using their time well, making sure they are working on something which really matters to me. Yeah. So buyer control or buyer involvement in case of time and material contract increases significantly. Overall risk, so buyer is assuming a risk of cost overrun, but I am also very much involved and I am little bit mitigating the risk by way of making a fixed rate for the cost of unit time which is involved in this particular contract. So overall, when to use it? Uncertain scope. Usually time and material or some variant of time and material are used in the agile ways of working. They can be used for short-term urgent projects. We can say, get started. Yeah, we will see later. We want to just get it done. So it is easy. You want to get a 1 day or a 1 month kind of fixing work. You will just hire a engineer for a duration and it will get done. So that's a good case for time and material. Staff augmentation or specialized expertise. You want to get some skilled people for a while and you want to give them a work, you may just go for a time and material. You go to a contractor who can provide you those skills and you may have a criteria and evaluation process for it. And once you approve them, they are with you and they will get billed based on the agreed upon rate. So that's the time and material, your use cases. Now, there could be variations, there could be variants in a time and material. The way we learn about fixed price as well as cost reimbursable, there are variants for time and material as well. So standard time and material where you agree to an actual time and material use and there will be a pre-agreed rate and you will pay. Now, there could be a time and material with early termination clause. You can say, yes, I'm getting these people for 6 months, but if I realize things are not going as I expected, I may terminate early. And usually this termination clause comes up with some fee, maybe a 1 month advance notice sometime. And if I'm not giving a 1 month advance notice, then there will be a penalty or there could be a fee which I need to pay for early termination, but I may want to have that particular clause. There could be a capped time and material which says that this is something I want to spend and beyond that I will not exceed it. Yeah. And if we exceed beyond this, we are not expected to pay for that thing. So it is something required some amount of estimation of the work, yeah, some amount of clarity, and then we go for time and material, and we have a clarity that this is the higher limit, and beyond that things will not get paid. Yeah, so we need to say I want to get this work done, and I will pay you as much time you will spend here, but I will not pay more than 10 days of time. Yeah, because this work if we have both understood, it's not going to cost us more than 10 days of work. So it requires some kind of estimation and clarity about the work. Some amount of fixed price things are coming, but there is a high flexibility because we can say if less is there or whatever we are doing, we can do it, but there is an upper cap limit. So that's something you can put it in a time and material if it is feasible. Now, time and material with performance incentives. So you can say you can put an incentive related to award and other incentives. You put some criteria that with this, if you produce this much output, or you may have some kind of matrices or some kind of measurements which need to be tracked upon. Say in case of software development, if the defects are less, or maybe if you don't produce any defect, then you will have an incentive of this much money. If you produce some amount of productivity with your people, then you will have so much this much money which will come to you. Those kind of performance incentives can be added in case of time and material. Now, comparison of this contract type, I hope you already got an idea, but if I put it everything in a one box, so you can say fixed price is required high clarity of scope, cost reimbursable low, time and material moderate clarity. Yeah, we have some understanding, but we don't have a very crystal clear understanding. Time and the buyer cost predictability, fixed price, you have great clarity. The cost reimbursable, you have a lowest predictability about your cost. That's you can say the variance of your cost estimate is going to be maximum in cost reimbursable. And time and material, you have a moderate, because at least one element you are trying to fix, and you are knowing that this rate will not change, unit of time can change. Risk allocation, we can say fixed price, the risk is more towards the seller. Buyer, at least cost risks are not there. My deliverable is well explained. I'm good with that. In a case of cost reimbursable, the risk is basically with the buyer only. Yeah, so seller will keep doing whatever they are doing. Buyer has to keep paying the bills. Yeah. In case of time and material, I can say a little bit balanced, because if my people are costing me more, I have to adjust that particular money from my pocket only, as the example I gave. But at the same time, if the extra unit of time is needed to finishing this work, that is something is my buyer's problem. So little bit more problem towards buyer side, but I would say the seller risk is also there. In case of cost reimbursable, seller risk is more or less nil. Yeah, that's something, at least cost overrun risk is more or less nil. Engagement level for a buyer. So as we understood, fixed price, I gave the work, I enjoy as a buyer. But in a cost reimbursable, I need to be highly involved related to money. In case of time and material, I am highly involved related to the execution process. Yeah. It is just not about money, it is about execution process, monitoring where these people are putting the time. So I should be knowing what my people are doing. So as a buyer, I need to have a clear understanding of what my seller people are really doing. Are they really productive? Are they working on the right requirement? So good amount of my hands are in my seller's execution. Yeah. As a buyer, I'm involved in my seller's execution. The maximum execution level involvement is in a time and material. In a cost and reimbursable, the involvement is only limited to cost approval, because I may not have a skill to understand what these guys are doing. Think about car service and hospital, but in a time and material, I am expected to be more involved. Complexity level, we can say in a fixed price, we want to go through things which are well understood. Low. In case of time and material, moderate, we understand it decently. In case of cost reimbursable, we are going because it's a highly complex thing. That's the reason we are going for cost reimbursable contract. I want to take a risk of cost overrun because it's a complex matter and it's a high stake matter for me. That's why I'm doing it. So none of the contract type is good and bad. It depends upon the situation. Definitely, when I can use a fixed price, it means my characteristics of the project or a requirement shows fixed price. I will just go with that. Yeah. Until unless I have a situation where fixed price is not suitable, then I have to see, is it possible to go for time and material? When I realize even time and material is not suitable, then only I will go for cost reimbursable. As a project manager, my preference is fixed price, then time and material, and then cost reimbursable. But I need to see the question when I'm dealing with the PMP exam. Now, advice for project manager, especially a buyer project manager, one by one. So say if you are procuring things in a fixed price, yeah, which means you have a part of WBS and you are giving it to someone, and the contract between you and your vendor is fixed price, you need to make sure you define scope very, very clearly. Yeah, that's the clarity. Your procurement people will say, do you have a clear deliverable identified? So I need to do a activity before we sign a contract to make sure the scope is well understood by my provider, vendor, as well as we have a clear understanding and test points mentioned there. If I miss there, I will suffer later as a project manager of a buyer side. I need to make sure by doing it, I minimizes the scope change. I will have some contract change control added in the contract. There is a possibility of change all the time, but my goal is there is a always a feeling that when we are going for a fixed price, the changes our seller is going to ask for more money. So we need to be very careful not to talk about changes very often. Though it will be a good idea in a fixed price contract, I may have a section which talks about what if we want change, yeah, which means the contract change control has to be there in each contract, and we try to optimize it so that it is not so risky. But in general, the feeling with my procurement people would be that, guys, try to have minimum changes. And when my deliverables are coming, when my the seller is bringing the deliverable, I need to make sure that we are doing proper quality check, because if something is faulty, these guys will take the money, but we should not be accepting a faulty deliverable. So our major focus should be that we oversight the deliverables of the provider, of the seller, because we want, they should not be cutting cost, they should not be cutting quality. Like they can cut cost without cutting the quality if they have some idea, but they should be making my deliverable as per agreed specification. That is my primary focus area. So whenever the incremental deliverables are coming and we are checking them before I approve their invoice, before I ask my finance people to make the payment to these people, I need to make sure my team put a appropriate test run, and we should have some warranty and some support clauses added in the contract, so that in case something goes wrong, we know how to deal with these people. Yeah, so that's some advice for the buyer project manager. We are thinking more like a procurement person in case of a fixed price. Cost reimbursable. If you end up going for cost reimbursable because of the nature of your work, you need to make sure that there is a clear understanding of how are we tracking the cost. What kind of reports will come? Will they come before they make the cost commitment? And what kind of say information they need to provide before we really approve the cost? So that clear cost reporting process should be identified. We need to be definitely ready to engage, because we are always a part of the process where we are approving cost. Yeah. So most likely we will have frequent updates coming in, frequent information coming in, and that approval is needed from our side so that the seller can go ahead and purchase those things. So I need to put appropriate mechanism to have a clarity about transparency about what we are doing. And I should put some performance incentive, some award or incentive, so that we ensure that there is some incentive from the seller side, yeah, to optimize the cost. Yeah, I will say, guys, if you save money for me, I will pay you some part of the saving. So that kind of things can make the seller optimize the cost. So that's, as a buyer project manager, I should keep in mind whenever possible when we are dealing in a real life as well as in our PMP exam. Now, time and material, we know it's a fixed rate. You negotiate the rate in advance. You try to negotiate the best. And then your major thing is you make sure who are the people who are coming to it. Many a time you probably will interview them. Yeah. To make sure that the individuals who are allocating their time are of the right quality. In your contract, you will put the characteristics of those individuals who can work on this project like that. And then you will be reviewing their time spent. So you might be reviewing their timesheets. You might be tracking, are they really doing the things which is they are expected to do? And you are the one who are responsible for ensuring their project level efficiency. If someone is taking 2 days and you believe it should be done in a 1 day, in a time and material, if it is taking 2 days, you have to bill for 2 days only. So you need to be very clear, is it a 2 day job or a 1 day job? Yeah, you need to be that much involved. And if you realize the person has a skill gap there, then you need to find a replacement for it, because that skill gap is making you pay double the money. So you need to monitor time spent and the general expenses which these five people are doing, but major focus will be time. And you can use the options whenever possible not to exceed clause, if it is possible, looking at context and the clarity of the requirement. And yes, it is something which help us becoming flexible. But as a buyer, I am too much involved. That's the essential part of it. I know what these people are doing all the time. Yeah. As a buyer project manager, I have a clear understanding of what these sellers are doing, which is my job, and I'm doing it because this is the nature of time and material contract. Yeah. So they are more or less like my extended team. Yeah, that's what I can consider it, and I have a more accountability to make sure they are producing good result for my team. If you want to get a copy of this PDF file, you can just visit www.isenbridge.com/downloads. And if you have any follow-up queries related to project management or contact type, feel free to drop the message in the comment section of this particular video. I will reply, or we will host another session, something which can help you in getting certified fast. If you are looking for free resources related to PMP exam, we do have video-based questions where I'm explaining the PMP style situations. We have 180 questions. You can find them on our YouTube channel. And we do have a free mock test available on our Eisenbridge website, which can help you to get certified faster. And I do run a live session where I teach people on PMP.